All right, I think we're live. Welcome to another Sedaru Live webinar. We've got folks settling in here. Thanks for joining today, everybody. It's as you might notice, it's not just me today. We've got our Chief Product Officer, Kevin Koshko, with us also. Kevin, let's check your audio. Are you there? Can you talk?
Yeah, can you hear me? Good morning, good afternoon.
Awesome. Yeah, loud and clear. Loud and clear. So always a little more fun when we can have a couple people doing the presenting on these webinars. So excited to have Kevin joining us. We're going to talk today about one call locates or 811, or depending on where you're at in the country, dig safe, dig tickets, CBYD. There's another dozen names around the country, right, Kevin?
Yeah. Arizona Blue Steak, Florida Sunshine. We could go on for hours.
Yeah, exactly. So, but this is really the idea of how do you as a utility better manage all of these tickets that are coming in that we're going to require you to mark things, to get your markouts done and to do it as efficiently as possible. And certainly what we're also seeing is around the country, there's lots of regulatory requirements that are changing around this, or legislative requirements that are forcing utilities to do dig tickets or to do these one call locates at a different standard than what they've been used to. So, so excited to have you join us. We're looking at, I don't know, roughly somewhere between 20 to 30 minutes of content here. We're going to walk you through the sort of the full solution, but there'll be lots and lots of time for questions in here as well too. So our goal is always to get you guys as much information as possible in a shorter period of time. And so it's good for you guys to ask questions. So you'll notice in that Zoom webinar interface up on the top, or depending on where you have your controls, you'll see a button that says Q&A. So if you hit on Q&A, it'll let you log a question. We'll see those questions come in on our end, and then we'll pause throughout the presentation and throughout the software demo to answer some of those questions as we go through things. If you don't already, take a moment, follow us on your social media of choice here. We put lots of good content up on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter. We've got a YouTube channel as well too, where if you go through our website, you'll be able to find recordings and links to these webinars and be able to share them with others in your organization. But it's a great way to keep in touch with us. So take a moment and make sure you're following us on those social media platforms there. And so I'll mention here as we jump into things what we talk a lot about this idea of drops, and then where does this 811 concept or idea fit into it, right? And really, this is really in this idea of thinking about digital and real time, right? It's really kind of one of the key pieces. But then, we also can kind of get into some optimized workflows here. But I mean, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, right? But many times, I mean, in your experience, there's lots of utilities that are still managing all their one call locates on paper, right?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't too long ago where people started, getting the emails and other things. But at the end of the day, they're still printing it out. They're still going to those locates and, not necessarily having any sort of mapping driven components there. And then also just the ability to respond to that, right? To electronically take care of it. I finished up my ticket. And now what do I do? And, we're seeing more and more states require electronic positive response from these agencies. So, whether you have a system in place or not, there's still, a lot of hoops to jump through, and having a paper process is not going to, help things along. And it seems like, with the economy kind of, kicking back a little bit and more building of things, you're seeing a lot more contractors out there. There's more construction. So that ultimately results in a lot more dig tickets. Fiber optic infrastructure and other infrastructure is coming in more. So all of that has a big impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, so here's what we're going to do. Kevin's going to show us how this looks from the field perspective first. So we're going to look at that. Kevin, I'm going to stop sharing, let you share on your end,
Sure.
and I'll introduce this a little bit while you're sharing, while you're getting that set up. The So we're going to look at it first from the field perspective, right? So and this is really what I find is one of the most critical pieces here, right? Because if you can enable your folks that are doing one call locates to really quickly be able to do and complete tickets, then you're going to find that you're going to find a lot of success with this, right? So oftentimes we're getting those emails, we're printing them out. Somebody's looking at that, they're then pulling up maps and trying to understand, is there infrastructure there, all of those pieces. And you spend a lot of time in the office having to manage and think about these. But it's with what you're able to do now in Sedaru, your field folks are gonna be able to kind of be off and running. And what's really cool, and I'll stop talking here in a second for you, Kevin. But what's really cool is we also have a brand new phone interface for Sedaru. So some of you existing Sedaru customers have probably noticed it in the App Store. We haven't shouted it from the rooftops yet around the new phone interface, but you're gonna be seeing more about that. So we have a brand new phone interface, kind of optimized for the latest and greatest in phone hardware. And so Kevin's going to show us that also in conjunction with the Dig Ticket. So I'm really excited with how this phone interface turned out, because I think been able to continue to make it easier and easier to get to a lot of information really easily on the phone.
Yeah, thanks, man. So just to confirm, you can see my screen okay?
Yep, absolutely.
Excellent. Yeah, so this is our new phone interface for Field Force, and I wanted to show it for 811 because it's really the perfect tool to use. Sedaru, of course, runs on Windows tablets, on iPads, where you have like a larger map, a larger screen. But when it comes to certain workflows, it just makes perfect sense to just use a phone, keep it simple, and have everything you need on a smaller device so you're not lugging things around. What's cool about this also is if you don't have like iPhones as part of your standard with your team, with your users and crews, even an iPod Touch, like the latest generation, works great. So you're spending $200 on a device. It's small form factor. It has everything they'll need in one kind of easy to use device, and it's very cost effective. So I like to show the Dig Ticket workflows on this device just to it's very narrow and directed for exactly what a user is going to need. So as updates to the Field Force user experience, we've added our tiles. You have access to your panel or your data, and then you can also switch over to your map. So we've added that here, which makes it real straightforward to be able to transition to where you need to go. But also the application is intuitive enough to kind of direct you to certain spots as well. So when I'm logged in as Kevin. I got 2 Dig tickets, so I can see them on the map here. I can also see them in my active list view as well. So it's going to have my ticket number, and then when that ticket came in, and then of course I can look at it from my map view as well. So when I tap on it, it's going to pull that up here, and then I can get right into the ticket information depending on what we have here. So I have different.
And Kevin, quick question. This is coming from the ticket information. It's all coming directly from the regional 811 center, correct?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So the one call center is going to provide those emails. Sedaru will intercept that. We'll put that into this ticket format. Basically creates a Sedaru work order, a polygon of the ticket location. So as we kind of zoom in, we can see, oh, here's the kind of bounding area of where the locate is. So all of that is available, and that gets automatically created through this process. All right, so from there, then I can pull up the ticket information here. Everything's kind of parsed out depending on ticket information you have. And then we can show a little bit more detail when Adam pulls up the Sedaru Omni interface. So when you get it from the one call center, that can show up in Omni, or it can get automatically dispatched to the handheld unit as well. So there's a number of ways that we can access and get to these tickets, whether you want to dispatch them from the office or have them automatically get sent out to the field. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. When I get to my location, then I have a number of controls and tiles that we can utilize for the data collection. So these are all customizable. So if I wanted to include additional details, then I can update these pick list values. I can add or remove controls from this form to make it exactly what my organization requires here. Now, in this case, we have like the assets in the Diggler area. If I'm talking about positive response, and for those that may not have positive response, basically it's a mandate from the one call center or the 811 center that when a ticket gets sent to you, that you must respond within a certain time frame, depending on the ticket type, back to the one call center to say that you've marked it up, or there's no conflict, or there's no assets in the area. So all of that would be part of that. If you don't have that as a requirement, then you can have more flexibility in what you want to collect out there from a data collection and saving the work perspective here. So we have this first question that we've answered. We also have another optional one here, like field status. So what we can do here is say, okay, it was marked, work was already done, no conflict, or it was like an update. So this is kind of the simplified form if we didn't have to, have a lot of detail with our positive response. In addition to that, though, we have our full positive response button here that will take us to the entire list of responses that the one call center requires. This is an example for California. So there's a number of different positive responses that they require. Colorado would be another example that we have positive response support for here. And what's cool about this, and one example, you can see that there's some that say clear, there's some referencing markings, there's some referencing contact or no access or other. So what we can do, which is kind of neat, is depending on the field status that you set here. So if I wanted to say something like marked, and I don't have it set up for this example, but we can easily do that, is I set it to marked, and then only the positive responses that are associated with markings would show up. So it's kind of like a cascading effect where I can just enter in a few different values, and then this positive response list can kind of narrow down if we want to. So there's a lot of flexibility there. But the nice thing is, whatever I set, I can go through, I can mark it as all clear. I can, of course, add photos. So any number of photos, I can take it with the device. So that makes it, very straightforward. Any sort of comments, and I can type those in. If it looks good, great. I can use kind of voice to text if I wanted to. You can incorporate, the initials or the team, whoever's going ahead and doing the locate. Of course, your completion date, defaults to now, and then move on to your next step. So what's also very nice about this is we can track our time if we use marking paint, if we have our pickup truck that we're using to actually do the work. All of that can be tracked as well. So obviously you don't have to necessarily go into this level of detail, but you certainly could. So now I can put the the time that I spent on site. If I used any sort of marking paint or any of that, I could set that here as well. And then, of course, the vehicles that I used. So
cool.
There, basically save it and off you go.
That's awesome. No, I think, a couple questions here, Kevin, in checking this out. One, how do we end up with the task is on the map there, right? So how do we end up with the location of that on the map? Is that just is there an XY associated with the ticket? How does that work?
Yeah, so it actually depends. So a lot of ticket one call centers now will have like an XY coordinate that's part of the ticket. but some do not. So there's some organizations in New England that they just provide an address, and then we actually have to kind of geocode that and provide a location. So it depends, but whether your system has that or not, we can support, providing it on the map for you, which is nice.
Gotcha. Okay. And then here's another question that came in. So let's say you do the positive response and you screw it up, right? You put the wrong thing in there. Is there a way to redo it? Like what would you do there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, you could go back into the form and go ahead and edit that as appropriate. So, if I were to select the one that I just did, I can go into edit and then I can update the response to what we have, and that'll resubmit.
Gotcha.
So, and then there's also like depending on the one call center, but there's like a link that you can use to kind of see what that latest response was. So just to confirm that everything goes through, there's like a little, website that you can enter the ticket number and just check the response to make sure that it went through as expected. So, we would be able to support that. Great. Users would be able to support that. So.
And then another question here. So how do I actually see the location of pipes and valves and those other things on the map that I've got to mark out? Can I do that?
Yeah. So if we zoom in a little closer here, we can see, that's the beauty of having the GIS integrated with it, right? So we can see, where the locate is marked with these kind of red and white areas. And then you can see, all of the pipelines and valves and hydrants and utilities in the area. So that's going to help you. And then obviously, whatever else you have, if you're using metal detector or other to mark out, your lines, but it's a great.
And does that little live icon in the lower right-hand corner mean I'm looking at live GIS? What's that mean?
That's a good question. So live is actually determination for live or offline mode. So within Field Force, you have the ability to work completely offline. And that would be by clicking that live button, you can kind of go offline and work without a connection. So.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. What about, we show us how the measurement tool works, by the way?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Cool.
So especially for this context, right? So I have this little tape measure tool in the bottom left. So I can tap on that, and then here it prompts me to tap a location on the map to kind of get started with my measurement. So I can, kind of start tapping here. And then here we can see, that's 96.6 feet. And you can kind of continue to take measurements as you need to clear that out. But just a nice, quick and easy way to get that those distances between your facilities and assets.
Gotcha. Okay, neat. All right, cool. Well, let's do this. I'm going to jump in. I'm going to show a couple things here on what this might look like on the office side of this. And let's see. I'm going to share. Let me share my screen here. I'm going to stop your screen sharing here. Oh, good. I'm going to share my screen, and I'll hit a couple of questions here. Let's see. Well, and kind of talk about the office side of things. So what we're looking at here is what we call Sedaru Omni. And this is primarily the office side of things, right? So this is where you're going to assign work from. It's where you're going to do your reporting on things, where you're going to kind of see the data that's coming in here and be able to work and kind of complete from there. You'll see there's a tile up here that's devoted all to 811 tickets. We've got other tiles devoted to other types of work in here, whether I'm looking at hydrant work or SCADA information or water quality sampling. You see as I kind of scroll over here, I've got all kinds of different data here. But the first tile over here is all devoted to dealing with tickets. And so what happens essentially is, let me find it's the one we just did. Let's see. Let's look here and see if I can find something I like. We'll find a couple recently completed ones in here. So I'll come in and I click on that, and it's going to show me the location on the map of those two, which you see one up here and one here. I can drill into the details and be able to, and then kind of have it zoom right into the location for me. And you see, like Kevin was saying, I can see on the map exactly what the area is that need to be located. And right from here, I can go ahead and make assignments if I wanted to. I can come in and assign this to somebody right from here as well. So I could hit create work order, and I can go in and I can assign this to somebody. I can also verify that there's infrastructure there that needs to be actually marked out. Because what you'll find is that you get tickets that come in that are for areas of your system that you don't actually have infrastructure in. And so you can manage all of this directly from the office. And so I can see here. Let me come in, and I've got another set of, I've got 3 non-emergency 811 tickets that have been assigned. I can come in, I can see the details of those. I can see the locations on the map and be able to look at all of those individual pieces here. And you see one of the things that it does, so in many cases, the way that the 811 systems work is you have that email. Sedaru Connect, which is what our middleware is that allows you to connect to different systems and to do things, parses out that email. And that comes in and can find a lot of the information that's in here. So you can see the information about the ticket itself. And I'll find a good example in here that will show that for you. But that's how I can see things like what's the city, what's the state required, all of those pieces there. And see that right from there and be able to do my assignments. Let me show you another example here in terms of what the reporting could look like. Well, and here's a good example here. You'll see all of the comments and everything that comes right off of the 811 ticket I can see are sort of broken out right within the details of the ticket itself. But if I come over here to my trend view, you can see here I can look at reporting of these. So if I wanted to look at here in the past 3 months, there's been 850 some tickets done. I can go on any one particular day and see exactly what's been completed on those particular days right from here. If I want to zoom into just a particular period of time, I can do that right from here as well too. So I've got easy access to reporting to see what's been completed and what's been done. And then I can go right from here and say create report. And when I hit create report, it's going to actually just generate an Excel list of all of the information from that ticket and when it was completed and all of those pieces, right? So if I want to drill in and do like a really detailed report on how I've been doing on one call locates, I can do that right from there. So let me hit a couple of more of these questions in here. So we've got a bunch that have come in here. So let's see. One of the questions that came in was around, how would you integrate this service, into an existing CMMS functionality? So it's a good question, right? So Sedaru works and functions as its own standalone work order CMMS computerized maintenance management system. It's one of the capabilities within that entire suite of Sedaru products. The Sedaru Connect framework that I've talked about is integrated, has hooks to some other sort of legacy CMMS packages as well too. So there's some ability to kind of be able to hook those into other CMMS packages. We're also really heavily integrated and built upon Esri technology. So there's lots of ways to be able to take the Sedaru data and Sedaru information, and since it's all being stored in the geodatabase, and to be able to use that in other systems. So there's 6 or 7 ways to kind of skin the cat there. It's the short answer to the question. So if let us know specifically like which systems you're talking about, and we can certainly kind of have a more detailed conversation about exactly the best way to tie into that system. Here's a good question, Kevin, for you. Maybe you can help out with. So, and maybe explain this a little bit. Today, one of the things is all of their tickets just come into like a common inbox for the utility. right? Common email inbox, right? Like dig tickets at myutility.com, right?
Yep.
So how does that workflow change then with using the Sedaru setup?
Yeah. So with Sedaru, basically you will forward. So it can be done a couple different ways. So you can contact your 811 center, let them know to forward the tickets from your member agency to 811 at sedaru.com. That's our kind of centralized Sedaru Connect repository for that. Once they've forwarded that, then Sedaru will then start working as creating the tickets, parsing those emails out, and putting them into like these polygons that you're seeing to represent the locations. So that process, there's a few tweaks that you would notify the one call center, and there's a couple ways you can do it. So you can notify the one call center. They can add Sedaru's email as part of that, and then we start the processing. Another way is also to potentially have your IT department forward the emails to us, just depending on kind of what process you wanted to go through. We prefer the direct link from the one call center, but nonetheless we can support a couple different ways. And then once we receive the email, as shared, it depends on the one call center. So like DigSafe in New England, they don't have an XML or like a file attachment format that we can use to like kind of automatically parse it. So we use like the ticket text itself. Others like Colorado, California, Connecticut, they will provide an attachment that we can use to kind of parse it out. So each system's a little different. The good news is our technology basically creates the tickets regardless of format. So it works out well.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And then a couple related questions here, right? So if you want to use that measurement tool to kind of document the length of what was located,
yep.
I'm assuming you can do that. But then the question is when I'm using that little measurement tool, can you pan and keep measuring, or are you stuck measuring just with whatever you've got highlighted on the screen there?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, you can definitely still interact with the map, pinch, zoom, pan. And what's cool about it also is there's a little copy button. So when you tap, across and you do your full measurement, you can hit the copy button and then you can paste it right into your form if you're collecting that information. So.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Man, lots of good questions from everybody. Really appreciate the questions. Let's see. So the highlighted area, does that disappear after you complete the locate ticket? So really good question, right? Because one of the things that you notice what happens is when the ticket's created, it creates this little polygon, right? Which is actually becomes a feature. It's a feature class within the geodatabase, right? So there's actually a geographic record now of every ticket that gets created, which is cool. But it's also a double-edged sword, right? And that it's great from a record-keeping perspective, but you have to be careful with it so it doesn't clutter up your map all over the place, right? And but what's cool is because we're using a lot of the standard GIS functionality, you can now you can control, and what most folks are doing with their maps is basically controlling how long that polygon stays active on the map for, or how long it stays visible on the map for. And then you can also do some color coding and some other stuff around it. So it's still there, it still exists. But if you want to say like, hey, I don't want to see it on the map, unless if it's older than 7 days or something like that, you can kind of control how that works.
Yep. Yeah. And what's good about that is like if it comes in as a renewal ticket, then, it's like, let's say we have a drop off after 7 days or 14 days. Once a renewal ticket comes in, then, it references it again and brings it back. So there's a lot of ways to, kind of clean that up. And like you said, Adam, with the GIS, there's a lot of flexibility in how we can display it when. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. How would we do, Kevin? What's the story for doing like sort of mass assignment
Mhm.
and auto assignment of tickets?
Yeah. So a couple things. So I mentioned there's an update that we have that is that will allow you to automatically send it out to the field crew without having to go through Omni here to dispatch it. So that's getting released here shortly. But basically, when a ticket comes in, if you're a smaller organization and maybe you have one or two locators, you can set that so as soon as the ticket comes in, it automatically assigns to their device, and they'll be able to start working on that ticket right then and there. You can also, choose to make sure that Omni is the place to auto assign those things. If you're working with, 5 or 10 or more locators, you're going to want to have a little bit more control over where those get assigned. So within Omni here, if I had, let's say, 25 open tickets, I can use Omni to select, half of those or the ones on the north side of the system, and then bulk assign those to a locator. So there's flexibility there.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then obviously, because we're creating that polygon, I can always just geographically draw a box around an area and say, boom, I'm going to assign all these to somebody too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's more features coming soon with that. So the ability to set up basically service areas. So when a ticket comes within that, then it will assign a service area to a certain individual.
Right.
So those are features coming soon.
Yeah, and one of the things that's nice about the Sedaru Omni platform, you see, like here, I've got these different performance tiles, right? I can do assignment of tasks to people, not just dig tickets, but here I can say, if I had, okay, I have new non-emergency tickets that need to be assigned. I have new emergency tickets that need to be assigned. I can go in and I can do all kinds of kind of slicing and dicing of the information and then make assignments or make selections, based specifically on those kinds of whatever criteria I want to select from there. And so you can in many ways kind of slice and dice the data to your heart's content there, and then come up with how you want those assignment rules to work.
Sure.
Well, good. Let's see. So there's a question around like the reporting. Can you do a report that just covers like the locator or a specific area or some of those things? And that's kind of the cool thing with how you generate reports in here. So I just kind of blew this report out here, so we will start from scratch. What's neat is I can take any one of these criteria. So here I've got this criteria that says I've got 14, in the past 14 days, I've done 194 of these tickets. To create the report, all I'm doing is dragging this down here. So I'm not having to do a whole bunch of fancy report building to do that. And it puts the results out here. And if I hit here to say create report and have it spit out in Excel, it would automatically spit out all that data to Excel. So if I wanted to say, hey, how many tickets has Joe gotten done in the last month, or how many, has this team gotten done, or some of these other criteria, I just have to create a performance tile around that particular criteria. And then it's available for me to kind of quickly be able to run reports on and to look at. And then right from here, I can adjust the date range and some of that stuff. So, and this is an area that we keep continuing to kind of expand and do more with here too. So you'll see even more flexibility here get introduced here over the course of 2020. So you'll have a lot of even more kind of reporting flexibility.
Yeah.
So we're getting kind of close to our end of time here. I wanted to we got a couple more questions to answer, but if you haven't thrown your question up here, now would be the time to do it, so we can get it before we run out of time. Let's see, Kevin. Here's a question. Right now, from what in a utility that's signed on here, right now what they do is they print tickets for records and the field crew. Can you print the map with the ticket on the same sheet? And what would that look like? Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's some printing capabilities from here, but one of the things that we have tried to do, and Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong here, right? One of the things we've tried to do is to help utilities really try to avoid a lot of paper, a lot of extra paper with these things. And that's kind of the idea behind being able to create these service area polygons with each ticket, so that if I wanted to, though, from each ticket, I certainly could print out I can hit this little print icon and kind of can print out the area here and do the little map printout, and have that piece there. I can use the reporting to sort of print out all the details of it as well too. But part of it is that from a record keeping perspective, you now have a digital record of with photos, with everything already in one place, that you don't necessarily need to be, proactively printing paper out, because it's all being stored proactively digitally. Does that make sense, Kevin? That's what I think.
Yeah, it sure does. I mean, the hope is that that you would take the system on to eliminate, the need to print, to get rid of the paperwork and to automate it. Kind of the philosophy of what we're doing with Sedaru is getting paper to digital, and then getting you to real time, and then optimizing that with a process like this, where positive response is taken care of, and assignments are easier, and you're able to do more tickets with less resources, with less time required, and less rainforests
Right.
mowed down. So yeah, I mean, obviously there is need for print. We still have the reports, we still have the printing, but it's definitely optimized for those devices that you have in place now.
Yep. Absolutely. So last couple questions. We got a couple of them, but they're sort of related, that are all just kind of, how much does something like this cost, right? Sure. And what's it cost to put together, right? So it's pretty straightforward. I mean, for those of you that are existing Sedaru customers, you're typically going to be adding named users to your existing Sedaru subscription. So you're going to pay for those named users. If you're a new Sedaru customer, it's kind of the same thing. You're adding new named users, right? So you're going to pay a yearly subscription fee for each one of those named users. If you have 3 named users versus 20 named users, your cost goes down as you get per user, as you get higher and higher numbers. So it varies. And then there's a one-time setup fee for this as well too. So and that covers a couple of pieces. One, that covers making sure that Sedaru is tied in and communicated to the State One call system. So the testing of that, and even from utility to utility, there's always like little pieces of that are different, that have to sort of get tested and worked out right. And then it's the specific configuration of your forms and some of those pieces, and training, and all of that kind of gets lumped into an implementation fee. So we can, and we on a case by case basis, we'll just figure that out for folks, depending on exactly what you need. What is nice, what Kevin was showing there in the field side of things, though, is you can 100% customize those forms. So we typically start folks off on an 811 and say, hey, here's 5 ways that other utilities like you have done 811 forms, and usually folks take a blend of that, to sort of meet their workflow exactly. But it's up to you. You can have the one call locate be as complicated or as simple as you want. It's really up to you. So. But yeah, we can do. I'm happy to have everybody that has attended the webinar will get a follow-up email, and we're happy to have specific pricing conversations with folks and figure out what makes sense for you. But there were a couple comments in here around this looking really easy for people to use, and thank you for that, because it's really intentional, right, Kevin? I mean, we spend I know you and your team spend a lot of time thinking of exactly that, right? How do we take these things and make it easy for the field folks, right?
Yep. Yeah, and just to present them with what they need, knock it out, and it's just a real straightforward use case that doesn't require. It's not very expensive, frankly, and the setup for it is very straightforward. So it's one of our kind of, lowest risk entry points into the platform.
Sure.
There's so much you can do with it. So
absolutely. All right. Well, great. Well, thank you everybody for your time today, Kevin. Thanks for joining us today. Lots of good questions. Like I said, keep an eye on your email inbox. You'll get a follow-up email from us. We're happy to get those specific questions that you have answered. We're going to keep trucking right throughout the year with more of these Sedaru Live webinars. So look forward to hopefully talking to you on one of those in the near future as well. All right. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks. Have a great week.
We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.